Well, hello, and welcome to my Whiskey Den, your favorite public access whiskey review show where craft whiskey is king. And typically on Monday, home of the show, an evening with, and a proud partner in the Bar Cart Co-op. This evening, oh wait, Mike, what do we usually tell everyone right now? Let's get it over
Don't
with.
forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that bell notification to find out when new episodes are coming out. If you're watching us live, please interact with the nice people in the chat. If you're watching after the fact, leave a comment down below. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up.
Yeah, those are good. Now, before we get into the meat of the show this evening, we're going to take a little second here. Everyone in the chat, I'm on my phone, so I can't read all your comments right now. Thank you for joining us. There's new buttons, different places. Thank you for joining us. Take a minute, pour yourself a little drink right here, because we got something to toast to at the beginning of the show. Our co-host here, Benjamin Eves. I was trying to read it. I can't read that small print on my phone. I think I was seeing if you had a smart-ass name for this evening or not. I couldn't tell. But he's worked himself into a job at Kentucky Artisan, which we are immensely proud of you and everything you have gotten into and gotten deep diving and got into distilling and kind of really took it to the next level. And some of your stuff has been absolutely fantastic. So I know we want to cheers you and congratulate you on getting your first step in the door into a Kentucky Artisan. That is a wonderful distillery where you get to play with Jefferson's, which is huge, and then their own kind of smaller brands. It gives you a lot of leeway, so we're pretty excited for you. So everyone out there, raise a glass to our boy Ben. Cheers. Sir.
Appreciate it.
Ooh, and I'm using Mike's really cool glass you sent me.
The Old Crow.
It is Old Crow. It's been wrapped in like bubble wrap ever since. Well, you said you like broke yours the next day, and I was like, nope.
Oh, I had a few of them for a reason. They do not take a hit very well. They do not repair well either.
All right, hold here. There we go. All right. Now that we're done with that, we're going to kind of work our way into the meat of the evening, which is the question, how do you keep control? Especially through the holiday seasons and everything that's coming up in general. It's an important question, and there's some fine lines. So I think we're going to discuss our history and viewpoints on it, but I'm going to step back for a second because I didn't prep properly for this evening with the house. So I'm going to jump in maybe second or third. So my apologies, but cheers again, Ben. And I'm going to I'm totally passing the buck.
That's all right. I do want to make sure read a disclaimer for everybody. So it's been many months we've talked about doing this, people that watch the show, people that are friends of ours in real physical life, just so you know, you might hear things that you've never heard before about us, and it might be a surprise to you. Please understand that if you didn't know, don't take it personal. Sometimes you don't share things with people unless you're specifically asked. Sometimes you're not in the right headspace to discuss things at certain times. And, to be my usual self, I mean, this isn't like veganism or CrossFit where it's the first thing that you say when someone, you introduce yourself to somebody. You don't say, oh, and by the way. So, understand this conversation is something we've talked about doing for a really long time, but it's been very hard for us to start with. So we are choosing to do this. We're choosing to be honest. We're choosing to bear things in hopes that one person says thank you. Because of what we're discussing, we're going to ask that as we go forward, each person is going to have the floor, and we'll answer questions at the end and not in line, because you're just going to kind of let the conversation flow and see how it goes from there. So, with that said, Ben, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go? Or
Yeah, I can go ahead and roll it off here.
okay,
Um, I have my own long story with this. I'm going to share a little bit personally about my own walk down this road. And it's real easy with, I think, within this community, especially with what we do. You see us on here, you see other men and women on YouTube shows, and what are we doing? We're drinking whiskey, we're drinking spirits all the time. And a lot of times it often looks like we're drinking a lot. Occasionally we are. But a lot of times there's little tricks to the trade that, how we get through things like this. So sampling whiskeys, we're sometimes taking very small sips, just enough to get a good flavor, good pull from. If you watch, we drink a lot of water while we're also doing this. It kind of helps hydration, helps keeps things toned down. But I'm not doing this every single day. I don't drink like this every day. As a matter of fact, there's been a lot of stretches where the only drinking I do during the week is when we do a show like this. And occasionally I'll have something on the weekend. But if you follow me on social media, you will see there's also been some periods where I'm posting something just about every day. And those are periods and times where I realized, you know what, I probably need to pull back a little bit, because everybody's different. Everybody's situation, everybody's life is different. But we all have stressors and we all have things that kind of push us. And it's real easy to become reliant on, just grabbing a bottle and using that to take the edge off every day. And it is in fact a slippery slope, and you take one more step and one more step, and then you're a lot further down than you realize. So one of the things for me early on, I came out of, like a lot of people, I came out of high school into college, heavy drinking, a lot of partying. You could classify me as a situational alcoholic then, because pretty much if it was a party, I had no control. Once I started, I was going until I was smashed. So there was a period early in my 20s when I kind of began to realize some things, and things needed to change. And I took a complete break from alcohol, period. Went for probably 2-3 years at least, not drinking anything. And not saying that right or wrong, that was just the approach I needed to take. And then I was able to come back to it with some maturity and a certain respect for it. Got into enjoying good wine. That's a lot of where I learned my palate tasting and nosing. Enjoyed some good craft beers, and then started the trek into spirits, into whiskey. But one of the things for me that when I really discovered the whiskey community, and it was mainly through the Whiskey Tribe and the Whiskey Vault. I think for a lot of us, it's been, kind of been a good doorway for all of us. One of the things I learned from them that I began to value was every quarter they take a week break. They had this dry period, and it was, hey, check yourself. Use this period, take a break from all spirits, all drinking, and just, let this be a quarterly check to make sure you're not developing a problem. And every single time we did this, in the social media and Facebook and the community, you always saw a few people pop in and say, you know what? I took this break and I realized I do have a problem, that, I feel that, I have this need for the drink, or whatever's going on. And they realized they needed to step away, or even a few of them needed to get help. And you realize something we kind of laugh at, dry week, who needs that kind of thing, but the thing is, when it becomes a habit and a pattern, and you don't take a break from something like that, then sometimes you develop that issue and you don't realize it. And so for me, just sharing personally with a lot of you guys, what's been very difficult the last several years for me have been actually personally been through some very difficult moments. One of the things that helped was discovering this community. Some of the friendships that I've made between Patrick and Mike, and just Alan and Kevin and a lot of different other people of you out there, Oscar, Emily, John Verstrate, Eli, a lot of you guys, y'all become like brothers and sisters to me. And you know, that friendship has helped me through a lot. But I went through a period about 7 years ago of going through some real deep personal depression, and took a little time of clawing my way back out of that. And in the meantime, facing a lot of difficult issues. One was my career choice and job. Quite frankly, I dealt with a lot of toxicity, a very toxic work environment, and that stress began to add up. Raising 4 children is not easy. That stress begins to add up. Personally, there were difficulties in my marriage, and those kind of stresses begin to add up. And it gets really easy in moments to come home. I'm sick of all the shit. First thing I want to do is just have a drink. Let me pour something and go sit down. And that's it. It sounds simple. It sounds, like, that's no big deal. But when it becomes every day, and then it's 1 drink leads to 2 drinks, leads to 3 drinks, and you come home and you have, all of a sudden you feel like, I don't even want to confront anybody or embrace anything until I've had that first pour of something, make that first cocktail. And you start to realize this is becoming a problem, and you've got to step back. And so there's been moments and periods for me that has happened. One was this summer. It wasn't anything, again, still dealing with a lot of stress, working through a lot of life change. Obviously we talked about facing a career change right now here at the beginning of the show. So some of that was dealing with it, but coming home, and I began to got into exploring cocktails, and it was just fun. Hey man, come home. Let's make a new cocktail every single day. Just explore these flavors. And that was great. It was fun for a little bit. And then I realized 1 cocktail is going to 2 cocktails, going to 3 cocktails, is throwing in an extra pour or 2 of whiskey after that. And man, you were just down that slope really fast. And it was like an everyday thing. And I had to say, you know what, this is starting to become, for me, and that's what I'm saying. Again, for me, you have to know yourself. This is becoming a little bit of a dangerous path, and I needed to pull back there. And so I did. I was able to, before it became a real problem. So yeah, you constantly, I have to keep myself in check. So, approach each day. Can I go through today and not have a drink of something? Sure. So let's do it. Let's not, don't make it something that I absolutely rely on. I want it to be something I enjoy, and something that I enjoy with friends and I enjoy in community. But I don't want it, for me, I don't want this to become that I get home, I have to have that drink. I have to have that to take the edge off. I have to have that deal with stress. There's other ways, and there's better ways to deal with stress. This is the easy way. This is the cop out, in my opinion. And I've never wanted drinking to be a part of that. So some of the guidelines I have, instilled for myself in helping me deal with this. If I'm really, I come home, work was hell. I'm really angry. I'm not drinking that night. If I'm really depressed, I'm really down about something, I'm not drinking that night. If my emotions are out of whack in any way, I'm not associating that with alcohol. I've just made a choice not to do that. And I think those are, for me especially, that's where things get dangerous, is when I start to make that connection to using that to deal with emotional issues, instead of just feeling it and working through it, exercising or doing whatever else you need to do to deal with that stress. Instead, I'm just turning to the bottle. I'm turning to something else. So those are one of the things for me that, I do a kind of I take my temperature. How am I feeling? Emotionally, and, what am I dealing with? And am I okay to drink today or not? And that's that for me is how I've had to approach it. And I have to keep a constant watch and a constant check. Not saying that I have a problem. From my opinion, I don't believe I do, because I can completely step away and I can go weeks and don't have to deal with it. But I don't want it to become that. And that's where I've been on that threshold where I could easily turn this into a real problem. And it can become that way. And I think that is literally out there for every single one of us. And so we have to learn to keep those things in check. And it doesn't apply just to alcohol. I mean, people have eating issues, stress eaters. Hey, that's another one for me. I have to watch if I'm stressed out, just close the pantry, close the refrigerator, and walk away, because it's easy for me to just go shove down a handful of food or something to help deal with things. So it's things and issues like that you have to look at in your life and assess and figure out who are you? What's your personality type? How are you emotionally wired? What kind of stresses are you dealing with? And then start setting up a structure and putting some things in place and in order to help you deal with that, and to make sure those things don't become a problem, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, whether it's something else. The other thing is community. It's having some friends around you, like Mike, like Patrick here, like some other friends I have that are willing to ask the hard questions, especially like my buddy Kevin today, ask hard questions and push you and call you out on things if it needs to be done. You need to surround yourself with people like that. You need to have a couple of people in your life like that, not going to pull punches with you, and they're going to call your bullshit. And surrounding yourself with yes people and people who just want to party and go along with it. And I don't see where that's ever healthy for anybody. You need people who are willing to challenge you. That's what's really going to help you grow. And that's, in life. And that's what's also going to help keep us in check and something like that. So that for me is it. And I think it's, like I said, everybody's an individual person. I'm not going to sit here and say, this is what worked for me, and so it's going to work for all of you. No, this is what worked for me. If there's something you can take from that and learn and use that for yourself, great. But you've got your own life. You've got your own story. You are your own person, and you've got to figure that out. I just know for me, those are things I have to watch for. Those are things I have to be careful about. And that's the bottom line with it. And so we do this. It's easy every week to get on here, have a good time. And that was something that even for me, when I first got into this community and started, getting into the whole whiskey tube and all of that thing, seeing people on here, and there's shows every single night, and it's easy to jump on and get in the chat and start talking with people and start having drinks and just enjoying that fellowship and community. And it becomes a regular thing that then for somebody like me can lead towards unhealthy behavior and unhealthy pattern. And that's what I have to watch for. That's what I have to guard. So, I have a great passion for spirits. I mean, it's why I'm getting into the industry. I love being creative with this stuff. I love enjoying all the flavors, and I don't ever want to lose that. So I choose to be careful with it and be responsible with it. And that's my story. So
I'm gonna try to jump off the phone and come back on the computer now that it's finally all booted up and working. So I just don't want to hit end on here. So I might, if I'm off for a second, you know what's going on. I'll be back in a minute. Right. And then if you want, I'll go. I don't have a problem. My phone's starting to run out of juice. So Give me a second.
One of the things, like when you were, the point you brought up, which I thought was a really good one, which I'll talk about more too, is having your voice of reason,
right,
and where that voice of reason is coming from. So I'll wait for Mr. Pat.
I'm here. I'm back.
Okay.
Can you
Here
hear
it
me
is.
all right? Everything's
Yep.
Oh
good?
yes, you're good.
All right. Just a couple of things I'm gonna say may sound stupid. But as far as like a drinking issue, uh, my state is known for drinking a lot, and it seems dumb when I'm saying that, but there is a relative term for tolerance, or I don't want to say what is expected, but just what happens in general. Um, there's a lot of people here, and a lot of times here, people start drinking at noon. Saturdays, Fridays, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You get started early. People come home. I mean, there've been plenty of people I've known who will drink. When someone says a case, you're thinking 12. They're drinking 36 cans. It's shitty
Right.
Bush Light beer, but I can't even I can't put away that much liquid in in a day, let alone fathom drinking that much. So for me, I did have an issue when I was younger. I was a little bit of drinking, a little bit of drugs, a combination with it, and I did. I wouldn't say I was out of control. Never wrecked a car. Never did anything like that. Um, there was a time I did take a sabbatical from work because I I I did stuff on the job. Shouldn't have done it. Don't know why I did. Young, stupid, dumb. A lot of this is some learning experiences that I'd say I didn't listen to other people. When you're young and other people kind of let India sit, kind of point you in a direction. A lot of times I was the type of person that I had to go down the path myself and even knew it. Like, this is a bad, like halfway down that evening, you're like, this is really fucking stupid idea. Shit, no wonder it went wrong, but there was a point there where I went that route. So drinking a lot here was no big deal. There was a lot of times, where we're having 151 and having drinks and doing other stuff. And like you said, Ben, one leads to two, leads to three. Well, we jumped in at three. That's kind of where everything started for most of the evenings. So I did go to NA when I was there. It was very very helpful. What I would actually equate it to in my later years now is it's a bunch of people being honest at a table with what's going on in their life, and the problems that they're having and why this is leading to this. So it's a lot of people soul searching for what's wrong and being honest. Sometimes you just don't have enough friends that are going to be in that section of your life, or I have, and I had a couple of my friends that maybe the person had to go down that path, like they were bound and determined, but every now and then you step in and say something. My friend Grant did that at one point when I was older, having another little kind of not necessarily completely out of control, but out of control for me. And doing some stuff was out of character, I would have to say, for myself. And he finally just one day sat down and we were just hanging out, and he looked over and he's like, "You're fucking shit up." And I looked, and no one had said it, and I myself had known I was doing it, but he brought it up, and we had an honest talk about it, and he was just like, and he knew it, and all I needed to hear was someone else to say it and just be upfront about it. And to be honest, right after that, it broke the cycle of what I was doing. But I was pretty I don't want to call it like functional alcoholic or drug or related or anything, but it wasn't far off. If I was on something, I could get, it wasn't like a big deal. I could get past it. I thought I could get through it. I could work, like it didn't bother me. it was an issue that I was in that state of mind thinking that, and I needed that break. And like Grant did, like when I did go to NA when I was younger, it was that break in the cycle from the way you were thinking, from the way it was what you thought was even right, or the cycle. Sometimes you just get caught up in stuff. And you start going the wrong way, and you don't pump the brake at the right time. You kind of like, let's see where this goes, and it goes the wrong way, and you have to backpedal. And those times are when I kind of got a reset. And it sounds terrible. When I was going through NA when I was younger, even then I knew that I wasn't going to never do anything ever again. I knew that there was a distinctive check in my head for respect for what was going on, and for the for the most part, keeping everything in check. Because I'll be honest, there's some holidays, some fun things that you go overboard on, and that happens. But that's kind of a planned thing. It's not like it's Thursday night. Let's go the full 9 with everything. So that, I don't know. My biggest thing was having to learn where the level was for me. It's kind of like I equate it to younger people in like college, when the people will drink excessively and they don't know where their limit is. Some people might just go over the top with the limit, and some people will find out like, oh, that's the point where I throw up. I don't ever want to, like that's the barrier. Once you find like your barriers that you don't want to go through or go past, or you want to look like, because there's a lot of times in public you'll start, maybe it's not you, but you've all been out with that friend who gets really, really smashed and is just fucking out of control, and you're like, I don't even want to give him a ride home. You just want to leave him at the bar. You're like, like he's being an ass. You don't want to be that person. You don't have, you don't want to give off that image. You don't want to do anything like that. So you'll learn like, I got like 2 or 3 drinks. Maybe I have maybe I have a shot and 2 drinks along what I'm doing before dinner, but I'm probably fitting in a water or 2, and I'm having a big dinner. I'm not letting this become, I don't know, letting drinking and having fun in that manner be like derogatory to you as a person. I don't know if that sounds like it's dragging you down at a point. You're not using it for fun. You're not using it as a life experience. You're using it as a crutch, and the crutch, it can hobble you, man. Like you start leaning on that too much, you forget you have a leg, and you start sitting in a wheelchair. It's, I don't know, man. You can start going down a dark path real quick. And then sometimes when you're going down it and you're having weight and you're having too much to drink, you start questioning yourself on other levels, and it starts to affect your mental state. It's just not good. But like I say, it's a fine line for me, because I still do like to have fun. I still do like to drink and come on shows like this, or, have a drink when I'm watching someone else or doing something, but I'm not having glasses all, filled up to this. I'm starting here, and if I pour over, keep it a little bit lower. Just keep it at a respectable level. Everyone has a point where you go over on accident. Don't hurt yourself if you do that, maybe you forgot to eat dinner and someone poured you something that was like 74 proof light whiskey and you didn't know it. Don't be mad at yourself when things like that happen. Just realize what's happening and don't pile on it. Like don't make it worse. And basically, I think from those times, and like you said, Ben said, having people to check you, to question you if you think you're going over the line, or them just to say something, even if it's just, hey, are you all right? Sometimes the hey, are you all right is like, fuck you doing? It's right. like, what are you doing? Like the last, last month or so, you've been making some weird jackass decisions, and I got to step in and say something, or you got to explain it so that I understand it. I don't know. But it's, I like I said, it's a fine line, and I just, you keep it at an edge where it's happy and it's fun, and you don't put it into that over the line setting. It's just that's where it gets scary, and you have a hard time checking yourself then. Like Ben was saying, when you're having, a drink or a cocktail every day and it starts adding up, if you're not thinking about it, you don't check that, and then and that grows quick, because you're like, oh, that was tasty. What about this one? And and like you said, and he gets in a pattern, and that's cool for maybe like a couple months. Maybe it's summer, but then all of a sudden you're like, you're kind of giving her there for a bit, gotta reel it back in. I don't know. I'm rambling. I'm living up to the name, so I'm sorry. But it's about finding your boundaries in my mind, and finding the respect for yourself and who you are in a state. Don't becoming over the top is really difficult. I don't know. I know that's difficult for everyone, because everyone has a different issue and a different way to approach it. But I still enjoy it. I still enjoy doing things, but it's just, keeping the limits, know where the reins are on you and everyone around you, because it's not just about you doing stuff. It's about how you are affecting everyone else around you. That is another thing. I haven't really had that with my adult life, but I know in the past, you're a kid, you do dumb shit, it affects your parents. And once you become a parent, you start thinking, like, man, I wish I wouldn't have been such an ass, at least, at least on a couple occasions, I'll take the licks I had coming mostly, but there's a couple times you wish you weren't as much an ass. When you start to look back and you're like, I hope my kid doesn't do all the dumb things I did. But it's respecting the people around you and not putting them at risk either, and trying to keep everyone on the same page. Like starting this show and doing this, there's points where there's a big swing. There's a point where even when you start whiskey, you start getting bottles. Then you start getting the bottles behind Mike. And then there's shelves of what's behind Mike. So and then there's like little sample bottles that are as big as, three shelves high here. So, to the wife, I keep that in check. I talk about it, like there's points where I won't buy any whiskey for a while, especially after I bought the 3-chamber rye special edition. had to explain that it was one bottle I had paid for that day. But it's just keeping everyone in check, and that's not just good for alcohol. That's good for you as a person. It's good for your relationships in general, and I think it really helps. I mean, there's points where Sherry and I are on the same page with, what's all here and what it should be, and how involved should you be in the whole thing. And there's times where I pulled back, now because of my house and other times from the whiskey community, just because I had to spend more time there, and not hanging out with people and drinking all the time on, listening to other whiskey shows and stuff for the evening. So it's finding respect for you and your family, loved ones, and your friends when you're doing these things. Don't put yourself or them in jeopardy, or who you want yourself to be. So I'm going to stop fucking talking now.
That was well said.
Yep.
So mine, a little different. I had, there was a family history of drinking. My mom's dad did, to the best of my knowledge, did pills. My dad's dad was an alcoholic, and he never hid it from us. My dad even told us the stories of things that he did that were dumb and drunk. Yeah, like when he was 19 years old, he crushed his ankle on a motorcycle because he and his friend were drunk and having fun and going around this really large circle, and they were having a great time. But so it was, I mean, it wasn't a secret, about it. And there was alcohol in the house, but my dad mostly cooked with it. And, but when we were kids, he would, like, if he was, barbecuing something, he'd barbecue with beer. It's like, you can have a sip of it, or, have a sip of wine, and it honestly wasn't a big deal. My mom's mom, God love her, when we were little kids, she literally would give us a can of beer and a cigarette, which is just so horribly messed up. But, I didn't drink in high school or anything because there was no curiosity. I had, because, I could go to my grandma's house and have a beer and cigarette if I wanted. So, but, it's always like a control thing with it. Cause, again, hearing the stories and knowing trouble that people had been into. So I'd always tried to be, pretty straight, with it. And I just didn't do it. And when I did start drinking beer, I don't know why I jumped into, what we'd call now craft beer, just because I like the flavors more. But I kind of had this motto of, enjoy the drink and don't let the drink enjoy you. And I thought it sounded really smart. It may or may not be. But when my oldest was born, my wife, she was a nurse and she was working nights, and we'd have a beer at dinner, and stuff, and sit down, watch TV, and then at one time she's like, she was, and for both of us, we should probably not have more than one, because especially if I'm working nights, if something were to happen and you've got to take her in, I can tell you that if you've got alcohol on your breath, you're going to get pulled aside right off the bat. I was like, okay, another thing for control. So when my son was about to be born in 99, I went in with the doctor, did a bunch of tests and, whatever. And he was talking about your life. Of course, I'm overweight, still am, didn't change anything. But he was talking about the beer, and he's like, beer is basically a bottle of bread and you should cut down on bread. And, and I was thinking, well, maybe if I was going to drink, would I go to wine? No, because you open a bottle of wine, you got to finish the bottle of wine. So I decided to get more into whiskey at that point for drinking. And what's funny is, from the time I started doing that, everybody, when they hear you drink whiskey, I mean, even now that whiskey is, popular, all the comments I hear about, oh, you drink the hard stuff. And I got friends now to this day that they'll make those comments. I've had it, they come over to the house, husband and wife, oh, you're drinking whiskey. They're drinking, 6-7 beers and then leaving, and I'm having 1 or 2 whiskeys. And somehow I'm an alcoholic, so I'm, again, this is a control thing that's like, I'm in control of the situation. So my different path, I should say deviation of my path, the biggest change started spring of, spring of 2015, when we start, and I'll tell you ahead of time, all of my stuff has to do with grief. Found out that my dad, the dad was going into palliative care and then going into hospice. So there's a lot of times where he just like, I got to decompress. I was making a lot of trips up to Iowa, drive up there, come back and everything. It's like, I just really got to have a drink to decompress. Got to have something to decompress. Couldn't do it, when you're up there, but, when it's done, you're like, I got to decompress with it. And, 1 or 2 was good and it was fine. And it wasn't really a problem. When he did pass away in September, like a month or so later, we had, I have all these, it's a very compressed time period. Right before my dad passed away, my oldest went away to college. He passed away 2 weeks into her freshman year. Then like a month into that, we had I'd gone away on oldest and dearest friends of mine. We've been friends for 30 some years. We go camping and stuff all the time. And they're, truly, closest people in my life and always have been. We went down to go fishing, and I had my moment where everybody had brought stuff. One guy had bought pre-made Manhattans. Another guy had brought some cherries that had been soaking in moonshine. And other people had brought, this and brought that. And so I was like, well, I'm going to have one of these pre-made Manhattans. Well, you know what? These aren't good enough. I'm going to throw these moonshine cherries in. Well, now it's not good enough. I'm going to start adding more stuff. And I was mixing them. I'm mixing this nice tall glass. Well, I have the one. Oh, that's great. I got to go have another. Well, by the time I had number 2, I really was not in control. We think I know I had 3. They think I had 4 in tall glasses. They were dubbed Mike Hattons. And again, because these are the guys that forever, and everybody knows each other's buttons and everything else, they were also kind enough to record all the really stupid things that I was saying when I was completely obliterated. And those things do get brought back up and shared again. But I had people, even as bad as it was, I was with people who had my back and were not going to let anything bad happen to me. The worst thing that happened to me was I lost the entire next day because I felt like absolute hammered dog shit. And really the next day after that too. But I did at least have people that had my back, and they made sure they're like, you clearly need to do this. It's not healthy, but you need to do this and let it happen. And I thought that was about the slip that I was going to have, with all that stuff. Well, 2015 became the year of absolute bullshit, because then December of that year, found out my wife had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So with that was a lot of things. There was immediate surgery and then trying to do treatments and everything else. And it caused a big problem. I had to focus on it. It's like, as much as I wanted to, and there's times where you could take a drink. When you're a caregiver for somebody, you can't. So for me to go 2-3 weeks at a time without a drink, that was easy to do. And there was a lot of times, especially if you live with somebody who's on chemo, and the chemo that she was on it's one of the worst ones you can absolutely have. And it's extremely brutal, and it makes you want to drink because when they come home from it, they have to be on it for another 24 hours. And when they're laying there, they lose all the color and they actually look like they're dead. So it makes you want to drink, and it makes you want to do it, but you know that you can't, because if something happens, you have that focus, like, I can't do it. And that's one thing that keeps you from doing it. And that's the things that, my thing, it was always control. And knowing that I had, the kids, I got to watch out for the kids, knowing I got to watch out for the wife. It was always the things to try to control it and try to keep me from slipping. But there were times where just like, I have to, like, you're worn out, but you can't sleep. It's like, I know if I go take a drink right now, I know in 5 minutes, if I take something that's high proof, I know in 5 minutes, you're going to feel that wash over, and it's just going to relax, and it's going to feel really good. But I have to go right to sleep. I got to go right up to bed to do this. But if I have another one, because alcohol, it's a depressant. It's also a stimulant. One of them might make you feel calm. Number 2 might make you like a toddler on Mountain Dew. I mean, it can happen. That's just, it's a thing. It's a stimulant along with being a depressant. So we go through, again, stuff with my wife and dealing with it. Things get great. She actually went into remission twice, which is extremely rare with pancreatic cancer. But during the time, especially with her treating it, it wasn't an issue, because I knew I had to, I had to be on point. You got to be ready. Something happens, you've got to be ready. Anything happens, you've got to be ready. And you don't want to be the person, if you have to call an ambulance or if you have to go take somebody, whatever, if you got alcohol on your breath in an emergency situation, guess who the asshole is? It's you. So, flashing forward to when everything started, 2019, everything starts taking a really bad dive. She ended up finally passing away in May of 2019. one blessing, which I look back on it now, honestly, this was a blessing. I had bottles, although I've been collecting it, not collecting because they were all open. But I had no place to put them. So they were in bins and scattered all over the place. That honestly was a blessing because so much of it was out of sight. And if I wanted to go and get a drink of something, there was effort involved. And if you're looking for a fix and there's effort, you're not going to do it. That's just a fact. There would be one or two bottles that might be accessible, but the accessible ones were also where other people were around. So if I wanted to do it, I could fight it and I could keep my control, with that. And it was honestly the day that the day she did die, my neighbor came over and she came over with some beers and she said, all right, we got to do an Irish toast. So she, let's go do it. And I was like, shit, it's going to take me a long time to dig out whiskey because it's literally buried in bins, which was a good thing. And I honestly, I had a fleeting thought after that where it's just like, I think I'm going to drink, and I think I'm going to drink a lot. But I didn't because I couldn't, because you're also, one, single parent, trying to deal with a lot of stuff. Two, a popular wife, because it was, Jesus, the church was a large church, absolutely packed for a funeral and everybody else. And, I kept thinking I can't do it because the last thing that I could do is be the alcoholic husband, the alcoholic widowed husband, of Julie. And there are times where, again, it's like, all right, I have time to myself and like sneak off and then have a drink. And it felt like, I don't know, you feel like a thief going off and doing that. It's like, here, I have a couple minutes to myself because I don't have any time to myself. So I'm going to go have a drink. But honestly, still having all that whiskey scattered around, it really was a blessing because I knew what I had, but to get to it, I had to really think about it. And where it was, Ben's been in my basement and where it was like behind things and behind other things. And I had to move stuff out of the way to get to it. So it's like, you really got to want to do it. But there were times where I'm like, I really want to go down there and go get into that stuff. But it's, one thing in having to go to, going to grief counseling and stuff, one of the biggest things that I heard, which I think applies to so many things, which also includes, it definitely includes drinking. I generally don't go out to bars for a couple of reasons. And one of them is when you go there and when I've got better stuff than a lot of bars do. And that's not being a snobbish ass. I do, but I can go to a bar and I'm like, you want $12 for Jim Beam White? You're an idiot, and I don't want to do that. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But, when in grief counseling, you talked about how it's okay to say no. And when you've got an excuse to do that, it helps, but it's okay to say no. If people are say, let's go out and go have a drink, it's okay to say no. It's really okay to say no to yourself when you feel like you have to have it, when you think I've got to do something to numb my feelings. But the thing is, it doesn't actually numb your feelings. That numbing is temporary. All that is temporary, 100%. All of alcohol's relief that it gives you, it is temporary. And if you think that you just have a little bit more and you go to excess, okay, great. But you're going to have a price to pay for that. And that price to pay could be you lose a day or two. The price could be your health. The price could be your friends, and it could be your family that you do that. I've had times where, I'm not in control. I had, recently, weather started turning a little cold, fire up the fire pit. And instead of going out and just sitting by the fire pit, went out, sat by the fire pit, not with the glass, but I took a bottle with me. Had a few pours out of the bottle. It's kind of a nice night. got to think about a lot of things. I had a lot of personal things on my mind that I need to go over, and had some deep conversations with myself. The next night, fire pit got fired up again. I took a bottle outside again. I ended up doing it 3 nights in a row. And then day 4, I was like, that's not good. I'm recognizing that I'm doing something. Yes, it was fun. I shouldn't do it. Was talking with a good friend and saying I was doing this, and her comment was, you know what? You're an adult and you can do whatever you want. It's like, I know, but I'm also an adult and I need to recognize that I'm being a dumbass because I'm creating a pattern that might seem harmless, but when you do that, and you do that with alcohol, and you have, a quarter, half of a bottle in a sitting, it's not healthy for a lot of things. And what it does and puts you, the mind frame that it puts you in. And especially if the problem, like in my case, and you're dealing with pressure of being a single parent. You're dealing with pressure of, how's everything supposed to pan out now that somebody threw the biggest piece of shit wrench in all of your plans, that you were going to do. And it's also messes with you when you're dealing with grief. I've been trying to watch and see what triggers that there are to make me want to have drinks when I do. And honestly, part of the reason that I have as much stuff back here is because I've chosen not to drink every night. And it's a dumb thing to say, but I don't have parties with it and stuff. And also another reason that I have a lot of this back here is because of this show that you're watching right now, because we buy this stuff and then we talk about it. And, you can't talk about it if you don't buy it, but, so yeah, if you're in town, I'll share anything that you want, because I can't drink this in my lifetime, and nor should I. But I know, like, things like, not being able to sleep. And when you get older, and it's weird, insomnia hits as you get older. And you're like, I know if I just get one drink and I go right to bed, I'll feel that beautiful wash over me, but I got to be able to go to sleep so I can go to sleep. But then if it doesn't work, do you go down? Do you go have another one? Do you go have 2 more, to hope that it helps you relax and go to sleep? Well, then do you have to do that every night? Do you have to do that week after week? Another thing is when, certain memories come up, where, doesn't have to be bad. It could be good memories, that where you feel like I have to celebrate this with a drink. You don't. I mean, you can save those moments for when it's important. It's not that you have to drink. You don't have to drink. There is one coming up, which I will honestly say next Friday is my 27th wedding anniversary. Some of you have heard the story, whatever, but it involves Blanton's, whatever. But it ended up being it was a fate bottle of Blanton's. I asked a friend to pick up a bottle that was supposed to be a gift for somebody else. My wife picked it up from him in Iowa and brought it back, and I looked at it, and as Blanton's, aside from collecting the horsey, everybody likes to get certain dump dates and whatnot on there. Well, every single handwritten thing on the bottle of Blanton's, it all has something to do with my wife and I, including that it was dumped on her 50th birthday, which we didn't think that she was going to have. So I convinced her that we would share that on our anniversary. We only got to do it together a few times, so now it's up to me to have it by myself until it's gone. At least that's my thing now. But it's also a controlled thing to see how long it goes. So as much as I've talked about control and me trying to control it, it's been hard. And I have tripped up many times. I've not been unfortunate enough to trip up in a very public environment. I've not done it in front of my kids, which, to be quite honest, that'd be one of the worst things, is to be inebriated in front of your kids, or to see you just being a sloppy piece of shit. I mean, everybody makes mistakes and does things, but there's a difference between being a sloppy drunk and being goofy. Um, and I, certainly don't do anything and go getting behind the wheel, but how you perceive your usage. I mean, obviously it's up. You have your own personal perception. Other people have their perception of you. But I think it's up to you to come up with your controls, come up with what lines you don't want to cross. But you've got to have somebody else that has your back. And it doesn't have to be your spouse. I mean, it could be anybody who does have your back, and you trust them. If they, when they say that's enough, that means that's enough. It's like your trigger word that you've come up with, or your phrase. You've got to have somebody who has your back. And if you're drinking alone, you got to give yourself a limit if you're doing it alone. Cause Ben was talking about the cocktails and stuff. It's easy. I mean, buying a lot of whiskey, is one thing, but man, if you really start going down those rabbit holes and you get that stuff, well, then you got to drink that stuff, because then it goes bad, so you might as well have a second or third cocktail. And, that first cocktail is great. Second cocktail is better. But, third one, you're going to be regretting some of your life choices. You start having a whole lot of that stuff. And unfortunately, I've had people close to me who've done that. They've gone over the edge, and it's hurt them. It's hurt them emotionally. It's hurt them health wise, which is, a lot of people don't think about that, what long-term, what that does to your health. And it's not just your liver. I mean, you're talking about your brain or some of the other functions and what it can do to you. But worse, it can be, especially if you have kids, no matter what their age. I mean, for them to have to see that and them to have to deal with it. And, I remember, Dad telling me the story about getting kicked out of the house because he decked his dad because he got tired of him being drunk. And, that's one thing. It's like, I don't ever want to be like that. And I don't want to have to know somebody else that had to do that or felt like they had to do that to get to that point. So, my advice is just try to come up with whatever kind of what you feel is a reasonable limit, and maybe back off from that just a little bit, and understand that certain things will trigger it. Emotions definitely trigger wanting to get a drink. Especially you're talking about, grief, bad situations. Irish wakes are great, but you can't do an Irish wake every night. You could do an Irish wake every night. Don't do that. It's not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for the memory of the person. If you're, a sloppy piece of shit pissing yourself because you're drunk and you can't function as a human being. But it's also just recognizing that I guess kind of going back to my saying that I thought was smart is that you need to enjoy the drink and don't let it enjoy you. Don't let it control you. No matter what, or no matter how hard it is, and make sure you always have somebody that you have each other's back.
I think that's very, very true. I think what you said, Mike, is important. Is that knowing that it's that person or that wording or phrasing, your friend, when they're like, you're over the fucking line. Like anyone else can say it, and you don't, it's all fun and games, and like that person's like, straighten the fuck up, and like you know what's happened. You're like, oh Christ, I'm already an asshole. Like
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know, but just I don't know. I think that was very good, Mike and Ben. And if people out in the chat right now, if you guys have questions or anything, I think I'm going to hit a point where we could go over a couple, or if you have anything else you want to add in the chat, let us do. Sorry I wasn't bringing stuff up. We were trying to let people go through the story, and sometimes reading stuff on the screen or other things when it pops up, it breaks your concentration and you lose your point. So that's why we kept them off tonight, though a lot of you did have some wonderful things to say, and we do appreciate that. So if you are watching this, make sure you have the chat going on the side so that you can see what else is all going on. And if you didn't, I'd go back and put it on.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick. Drink Pro, your comments I deeply appreciate, and just let you know we're 100% here for you, buddy. I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do what you're doing. And I think that's another aspect. I'm not going to sit here and say we're some kind of celebrity. I mean, we got 500 plus subs. We're nobody in this business. But the fact is, we do have an audience, and there are people who watch. And that can make it very difficult. You know, it's like, hey, we're supposed to be the pros at this. And pride can make it very difficult for you to admit that, you know what, I do have a problem, or I do need to step back, or I've really fucked up right here. And the fact that you've taken that step, bud, I deeply commend that. You know, again, this has been a conversation Mike and Patrick and I have talked about for a while that we've wanted to do. And to get up here and say, yeah, we've made some mistakes and we've had some issues and we've had to take corrective action on those. I think I would love to see more people in our community kind of make that effort to do that, because we're not pros. We're normal people, everyday people like the rest of you guys that we happen to really enjoy, you know, the whole spirits and whiskey thing and what's going on there. But I think being in this position, it can make it a little bit harder, you know, because now you have a public forum, and you're supposed to have it together. We're the ones up here talking about this stuff all the time. Nah, we're just like everybody else. We deal with stress. We deal with issues. We deal with grief. We deal with it. You know, we have lives, and it's not always rosy and easy like everybody else. And we have to be careful. We just happen to have a little bit of a voice here that a few of you people enjoy tuning into and watching. But that, you know, for somebody like you, Drink Pro, that, yeah, I appreciate the fact that you can even come on here and in the comment in the chat and talk about it a little bit. But I think too, the fact is, we live in a society. I'm not going to try to step on toes here. We live in a society that we very much like to medicate our emotions and feelings. Everything should just feel good and hunky dory all the time, and we're afraid to feel. You know, there's all kinds of prescriptions and meds for that. And before that ever came around, there was always alcohol or any other kind of drug or narcotic that's been around for as long as mankind has, looking for a way to deal with our shit. And, you know, sometimes, I don't know, I'm the perspective and trying to get more into this and just letting myself feel things and deal with it and work through it. And it's okay. That's part of life. That's part of being human. That's part of our condition. And trying to always find a way to just numb that or subdue that, I think that's where we get into a lot of problems personally. And, you know, feel that grief, feel that anger. That's a part of who we are, and, you know, learn to realize, you know what, that's okay. I don't have to feel on top of my game every single day, 100% of the time. That's life. And that's where hopefully we've got some people that help pick us up and carry us through, because that's also part of it too. But
yeah. And anyone who's watching it now, watching it later or whatever, I think I speak for the three of us. Reach out if you want to reach out to one of us. I mean, we're just three perspectives on dealing with it. There's 1,000 others, you know, but it's not an easy subject to talk about, obviously, but you know, we care about the people that are watching. We care about our friends. We care about the people around us, and you know, you don't want anyone to hurt. Right. And, you know, it's, you know, especially when, you know, you can't physically see someone in this media, but you can still take the time to just reach out and just say, I want to talk. And somebody will talk to you. We'll talk to you. You know, if you have a question, you're just like, do I have a problem? Or the fact that you're asking the question is good, because a lot of people don't. And this, the timing of us doing the show, it's interesting that it goes along with how they're doing the dry week with the Whiskey Tribe. It's not why we're doing it. It's not why we planned it. It's just because we didn't have anything going on. It kind of works out that way. Yeah. But they do run into a lot of people who, as they do that, are like, wow, I didn't realize I had a problem, because I'm 2 days in and I'm dying here,
Yep.
So, you've got to figure out what works for you for abstaining or taking breaks or having your control, or however you're going to do it. And actually, or if you're going to be, if you're going to be with a group of people and, they're going to drink and you're like, I don't want to drink, and you have a chance, which we have Adina had a really good mocktail, or do something like that where you're like, I want to be part of this and have flavors with no alcohol. Mm-hmm. And you can do that, and you can go out. I mean, I've gone out, gone to places and just not gotten anything to drink just because I'm not in the right frame of mind. And again, I know this, this had to do with going with grief counseling, but it's true. It's okay to say no. If you aren't feeling right and people are like, let's go out, you know what? If you don't go out with them that time, if you don't go to that party, if you don't go and have those drinks, it's okay. It's totally okay. Say no. You got to do what's right for you. If you're not feeling it, just don't do it. Just don't focus on something. It's like, I've got something else that I need to give my attention to that is not having a drink.
Mm-hmm. This is also, I think, the timing of this too. We're getting into the holiday season here, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and that is notoriously a difficult time for a lot of people. I mean,
yeah,
and really easy to turn to that bottle to deal with family issues and personal issues and everything else. And that's for me, that's what this conversation is about. The occasional going out and you have a good time and you cross the line, if you're safe with it, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and blast people for that. It's where this becomes a crutch, like you said, Patrick, and it becomes a habit and a pattern of reliance. And that's what I want to talk to you about, because that's where I have come close at times to stepping off that slope, and fortunately have had the awareness or had people to, help pull me back here. And so in doing that and recognizing that, it's like anything in life. If you want to be successful in life, you got to have a plan. You can't just expect shit to just happen and fall in place. And the rare occasion that it does, great. But if you want to do anything successful in life, you've got to have a good plan for it. And it's the same thing with this. You want to enjoy this, and you want to enjoy this for a long time. Know yourself and have a little bit of a plan in place to keep that in check and to keep yourself responsible with it. That's all I'm saying.
And like Ben said, when we talked, we wanted to hit it either this week or next week because of the holidays. That's when everything kind of gets amped up anyways. Not just the drinking, the emotions, the interactions. And another reason is, let's be honest, in the last, let's say 2 months, we've had 4 or 5 people that watch the show that have had a family member die. And that's a lot of people going through some stuff, and we want them to know to care and to, that's a lot to deal with, and especially with the upcoming holidays, and to know that we care about them, that we recognize it, and that we want to know that there's a way to get around it. Difficult times in situations like that. And the mocktail is great. I'm going to put that up again, because you can still enjoy what's going on. You can go to the party. You can relax with people. You might even have people stealing your stuff and maybe mixing a little bit in with them, but you can still enjoy the evening, and you don't have to go down that path or fear what happens. Because sometimes it's like, I'm not afraid of the first one, but when I get to 3 or 4, the 4 leads to 8. Like all of a sudden it's like, or with a lot of cocktails, sometimes the sugars help rush to your head a bit, or you're sipping out of a straw on some of them, and it kind of gets you a little bit quicker than some other things. So I think the mocktail is a great way to, if you're not willing to just blatantly tell everyone back up, I don't need that, but I'm here to have a good time, but kind of blend in and plus you get something tasty with it. But yeah, it's from different aspects like we talked about. I feel like the main thing is it's learning your boundaries and learning your control and respect for yourself and the people around you. And sometimes, and some of that's a learned thing over time. I can't always expect, sounds dumb, younger people to have all that. They might not have gone through as many life experiences and found a way to do it. That's when you say something, but you can't always hope that everyone listens to you or does what you're doing. But that's maybe the best you can do in that situation is throw in your 2 cents and, hope that's the thing. Like I said, that one day with my friend Grant, he was just throwing his 2 cents in, and it was just a word, hey man, you're fucking up, was enough to be like, okay, like it sounded dumb, but I needed like realization from someone else in the world, even though I personally knew it. Sometimes those 2 cents hitting off you is enough to make everything ring free and kind of shake the pattern you're in. So don't be afraid to be the friend that does that.
Right.
If you see that happen, if someone's going to go down that path, they're going to go down that path. But I mean, poke at them a bit here or there. Don't be that constant nag. That usually doesn't work out great either. But every now and then be like, we talked a couple weeks ago and you're still fucking up.
Yeah. And we're, with us talking to everybody here, Ben said, we're a tiny little channel and we're okay. We're not going out trying to rack up a bunch of views and whatnot, but we care about all of you people that are watching this. We care about all of you that tune in and comment, and people we've been fortunate to meet in person. It's been important to us, but the end is, we care about you, and we don't want any of you guys to run into a problem, or if we remind you of somebody else in your life, that you can be the person that is the nagging voice to say, hey, we got to talk, there's something going on here, and making sure that somebody's okay. We all do it. And it doesn't have to be a big slip up. Everyone's got stuff that they're going through. It just, that boulder somebody's carrying, it's different for everybody. Not everyone, you can't compare one problem to another. That boulder is still a boulder to somebody, and they're trying to find a way to not feel that. So be that person and reach out, talk to them. And again, reach out to us. If somebody, if you got a question, you want to talk, just reach out to us.
Yeah.
We can be a starting point.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, sometimes it's just talking. I was going to say, like when I was younger, it was just, I wouldn't say not having honest discussion, but my brain and body it was hard for me to have an honest discussion with my parents or my family at that point about how that was all working, my brain and my emotions and stuff, because I was embarrassed by it, so it was hard to have that. But going there where it sounds dumb, but like everyone was a fuck up, like it was admittedly when you walked in, hi, I'm a fuck up. It's nice to see you. I have issues. I have problems. And I think there's a lot of that in today's society that gets overlooked. Is, hi, I'm an average person. I have issues and I have problems. I think a lot of people like to give off the image that everything's running smooth all the time. And I don't buy it, man. It's just, Murphy's Law is not just an effect for me. It can't be. I know it's an effect for everyone else too. Like there's stuff that happens along those lines. So it's just being open and honest with people and yourself. I don't know. And making that connection, because that a lot of times, sometimes a lot of those things can be based off of just not having a human connection or someone to talk to, to trigger what's going on. Yeah, I rambled again. Sorry about that. So, yeah, I don't know where to go off of that. It's like we said, it's something that each of us and everyone deals with, and I think we're not saying don't have a couple drinks every now and then, but when you start seeing it become a habit or a routine, and it's enough for you to recognize, that's enough to slow down and take a look at it. And especially if your family members bring it up or anything, respect that. They're the ones living with you. You might be living by yourself. So,
I'm with you. I don't think there's necessarily an easy way to wrap this up, Patrick. But the bottom line for me is just echoing what Mike said. We're a small channel, but all of you that participate in this, we love you guys very much. And fact is, we just want the best for everybody, period. And we want to be able to enjoy this for a long time and enjoy it and share it with you in discussing and all of this. So with that said, just check yourself, please. Mm-hmm. If you need help, get help. We're here. Yeah, I think most all of you know where to reach us, whether it's social media, through the emails, the links on the channel here. Reach out. We will help you get the help that you need, even if it's just being a listening ear to help you talk through something. We're here for it. That's part of what community is about. And that's why we address this. That's why we've wanted to do this, because we've all had our bouts, in working through all this and dealing with it. And that means also that there's plenty of you out there who have probably had issues and struggles at times in your life. And we just want to help you not have those struggles or not take that step too far off that slippery slope, so to speak. So,
and I think that's a good place for it. We appreciate everyone. I appreciate Mike and Ben, the stories you told tonight, and very personal, and I appreciate it and sharing it with people. Appreciate everyone in the chat coming on and sticking around and having some great comments throughout the evening, and engaging in the conversation and discussion we were having. It's something that's very important. We appreciate you doing that. Next week we'll be back to Thanksgiving, so some Thanksgiving drams, maybe just a little enjoyment stream. Actually, maybe we'll do a review. I think you guys might get you may get some Jay Henry by that point. We may have to review that one coming up next week. That's if Ben's even in. Are you changing?
I was gonna say next.
The fuck? I don't know where to send your shit.
We'll work that out. Next time we're broadcasting from the show, I will be from a different location. That's for sure. Somewhere in Kentucky. So
that is true. So
yeah, I do want to bring up the people that won last week. At least the stuff that I was taking care of. I got everything poured, and then on Tuesday night, I got the call that I was possibly exposed to COVID. So I didn't think it was a good idea for me to package anything up until all that stuff was taken care of. So I've got all that stuff that I will get shipped out this week.
Yeah.
Why don't we go next week? And it was the Armagnac finish, Fred. And thank you for stopping in, Fred. And everything you do. Yep. So, I don't know. I don't want to end on a bottle pour, so we'll just give a cheers to the cheers to the community out there.
Yeah.
Keep yourself in check and enjoy life. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.